let's talk about Dao De Jing. That's okay. So that.
I just have one quick question. What
Right.
version are
Oh, yeah.
what version are we using?
We are not using any version. So
okay.
Basically, what we are doing is okay. Joe has been in the 52 living ideas. So this one is kind of like repeat or summary from the 52 ideas, because that just give everybody a little bit background. Because Shuang is running the 52 living ideas on every Tuesday evening, and he asked me to join to kind of answer some questions, since I know this one pretty well. So I joined, and in that meetup, everybody read their own favorite translation, and then I start to understand how different of every single translation. So I get involved more and more. Then I start to write my own translation, because I find out none of them I'm happy. I should not say happy. None of them I think fit my purpose. Okay, so the thing I find out is most of the translation, or I should say all the translation is doing is they are telling you as a reader, telling the reader what they are understanding, the translator's idea. What do I learn from reading Dao De Jing? Okay, not telling you what the Dao De Jing is talking about. So that's why I start to, in other words, the translation usually tell you the reflection of the translator, not what Lao-Tzu, the author, want to tell or try to tell in the book. That's why I start to make up my own translation. And then I start to look at the ancient Chinese interpreter or translator. Some are very famous scholars. I start to read them. And I find out that they also doing the same thing. They are sharing what they learn from reading Dao De Jing. They are not telling you what Dao De Jing want to tell. Okay, that's the problem I face. So from that point, I start to work pretty hard to figure out how do I make the author talk to for himself, not through me. Okay. I know it's difficult, almost impossible, but that's what I'm trying to do. And that's up to you as a reader to read the message, and then you will learn whatever lesson you learn. Okay, so that's the idea I'm doing. So that's the first. I will try. I pick up some of the chapter, and then I'm going to introduce. And I ask everybody to read your own, and I probably post a few translation so you can read it. It's pretty easy to read, I assume. So you are able to compare, and then after I present my translation, I'm going to do line by line, word by word, and you will see the difference. And it's welcome to bring your own question and then ask why they are different, or challenge something you think doesn't make sense. Then that's the format that we try to run today. So let's start about this book. That's the basic. I will, if you don't know this book, then please ask question, and we'll make sure you know what we are talking about. Okay, we talk about the Dao De Jing, which is the famous or probably the canon of the Taoism reading, which is the different. The traditional way called is Dao De Jing T. Start with T because that's the Hong Kongese pronunciation. And nowadays people use this name DDJ Dao De Jing. Okay, that's a Chinese name. And then this book is, of course, roughly about 400 BC, during or pre-Confucius time. We don't know, around that time, okay, 2,400 years ago. And the author is Lao-Tzu. There's a different spelling, okay? There's some spell as Lao-Tzu, T-Z, okay? T-Z, right? Zi, Lao-Tzu, okay? So there's a different spelling, but whenever you see Zi, Tzu, or Zi, that means Mr. So that means his name is Mr. Lao, and Lao means old, okay? So that's Mr. Old. So it's a little bit strange. So some people said his last name is Li, okay? And then some people say, no, it really has a last name called Lao, okay? And actually they do have some people has last name Lao, means old. And another way to talk about is some people say when he was born, he is already 70 years old because his mother has a pregnancy period for 70 years. So when he was born, he already had the wisdom of 70 years old man. So, all kind of story. And the book is very short. It's about only 5,000 characters. Okay, remember Confucius analogs is 10,000 characters, and that's short. Okay, and Lao-Tzu even shorter. Okay, it's a 5,000 character Chinese characters, and we separate as 81 chapters. So that's all we know, and we just assume the author is Lao-Tzu, and they have a different theory, probably compiled later time, probably have a different author, but that's all historical account. We just at this in this meetup, we just assume this is a book and there's an author called Lao-Tzu. Okay, so here's the idea. So when we read this book, and I think every book, every writer, they have an audience, right? So we need to know who is the audience. Like in Old Testament, the audience is Jews. Okay, the New Testament, the audience is the church member. When St. Paul writes the letters, he writes to the church members. In Confucius analog, in Confucius analog, Confucius talked to his student. Okay, and his student usually is political government officer or trying to get a job as a governor. So basically like a politician. So that's Confucius' audience. Then the question is, who is Lao-Tzu's audience when you write this book? Okay, so I don't think Lao-Tzu is talking to you and me as regular people. I believe he also talking to the prince or aristocrats or ruler, the government officer, probably a higher ranking government officer. Like another Confucian scholar, philosopher, mentions, he constantly talked to king, the feudal lord, okay? And then we don't know who Lao-Tzu talked to because he never addressed, okay, the person, okay? But I will assume he is talking to, because I have no reason to believe he is writing things like Homer in Greek, right? They sing a song, they read aloud to the group of people. I believe he's written for some purpose. Okay, so that's I believe, and that's the way I understand this book. It could be a little bit different than other people, but that's my understanding on this one, and that's I'm going to translate based on this, and then a little bit something Lao-Tzu or Dao De Jing is not. Okay, it's not a religious book. Okay, so we may hear about the Dao De Jing or Taoism as a religious, their worship, that's totally different thing. Even this religion is pay respect to Lao-Tzu. They even consider Dao De Jing as one of their canon, but it's not about religions in this book. And I'm going to argue this book is not about Dao. Okay, people always talk about, because my understanding is on the first chapter, the book talk about the Dao can be Dao or can be studied, can be spoken. It's not real Dao. So there's no way, it's talking about Dao. So, and the concept of Dao has been all over in the ancient time, and even today. Okay, so if you read even Han Fei, the legalism, okay, or you read about Confucius, okay, they all talk about Dao. Okay, they just use Dao. They didn't explain what Dao is. They just assume you know. And same as Dao De Jing, this book, it talk about it, but it show up many times. I think I make the word count and about 90 times or something. Okay, or about 85 times. Okay, so but it's not try to explain, but I believe it's not talking about Dao. He has different purpose. And another is it's not talking about yin yang. Okay, you only show up yin yang only once. Okay, so but doesn't mean there's no yin yang at all, because yin yang has been running as a background, same as Dao. Okay, it's been in the background, so you don't have to mention it. Okay, just like Indian. Okay, most of most of religion, the Indian religion are vegetarian. Okay. They believe Indian believe karma, but the book, the canon, the religion are not talking about like a religion, not talking about karma, because that's the background. You already have it before you read this one. So same thing as this one. It's not specifically explain what is Dao. Basically, they just use Dao as a symbol. Okay, and they try to explain, but there's not like all the whole purpose explained. I don't think that's the way. Okay, so and I'm going to position this book as a philosophical book, okay? And I believe that's the purpose of people coming to join this book. So that's read as a philosophical book, and then see how do we understand this book. Okay, so that's the purpose of today's section that I'm going to read, and then. Any question or anything we want to talk about, please raise your hand.
I have a quick question. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see the, go ahead if someone's going.
Jimmy, you have
yeah. So what is the Dao? You said that it's not about the Dao, the concept. So can you explain what is the concept?
I'm not going to explain.
Sorry. Sorry, just to add on to that before I forget, is there, I know that there's, every philosophy has like a premise, and like what it stands for. Like, for example, existentialism is.
Hold on, Sarah, can you put on hold? Let me go to Jimmy first. Okay.
But I'm just trying to add on to what he just said, in that
okay,
I'd like to get an idea, like a sentence as to how to think of, go to this.
Okay, so Jimmy, that I'm going to say is what is Dao? That's a big question. Okay, so the typical, my answer would be, Confucius said, if I heard about Dao, I understand Dao in the morning. I can die in the afternoon. Okay, so that means how difficult to understand Dao. And Confucius lived for 73 years, 73 years old. So at least we know for 70 something years he haven't heard about Dao, haven't understand what is Dao. So that's kind of the answer I will give you. And then so we probably just have to hang on over there. So we will get it later.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, sorry I didn't answer your question directly, but the big question. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Just like if you ask a question, what's the essence of God? Then it's it's a big question. Rubana, please.
Jason, last week it was Ren that was hard to explain. Is Dao, and now you're saying Dao, Confucius couldn't understand. Are they similar? Are they?
You mean the Confucius Dao and Taoism's Dao, are they similar?
No, last week, remember we talked about Ren, or and it was very hard to explain. It's something you had to understand, and it was hard to explain. Is Dao something like that?
I would say Dao is on the higher level than this. Okay, Dao is kind of like, you know, in everything we call it Dao. Okay, so even in today's Chinese language, if you are irrational, okay, then we will say you are not following the Dao. Okay, so Dao is kind of like a highest principle everybody have to follow. And what's that principle? Well, that's a big question. You know, they have something. Okay.
Is it similar to the mysticism of Sufism, which is very high level?
It could be. It could be means same as Muslim means Islam. You know, probably that's one friend that told me. You know, the meaning of Islam is the same as Chinese Dao. Since I'm not Muslim, so I don't know, but that's the person told me. Okay, so I think Rubrana, you're probably right. Okay, that's this kind of concept. So any comment, any question?
I think, do you want to give Sarah a chance to finish her question?
My question was more of just like, there's each philosophy, I would say, has like a sentence that you can, you know, you think of the philosophy. Like existentialism is like, your essence before existing.
Well, the first sentence on the Dao De Jing.
Oh, existence precedes essence. So in existentialism, I don't want to take it there, but like, what it argues is that you exist first and then you create your own essence. Here, I'm not sure what we would sort of apply in terms of just a quick thought to think of this philosophy. That's the only question I have. But if you don't have the answer, that's fine. We can come back later.
I have the answer. Okay, the answer is the very first sentence on the Dao De Jing. It said that the Dao can be spoke or can be explained. It's not real Dao. Okay, so that's the most famous saying. So that means it's difficult to say.
Okay, I mean, okay. That's fine. Yeah, go.
Yeah, so I hope I satisfy your answer. Yeah, Madeline, please.
Yes, I'd say for those who've done the reading and don't really have any sense of what they're talking about, think of the Dao as something that is sort of precedes metaphysics, that precedes all gods, that precedes all being, and is at the same time is all being and is all not being. So it could be seen as the great ground of the universe in the same way that Brahma is. And sort of just take it as a working definition. This is more about how to find it and what to do with it and ways to approach it, rather than a logical, analytical approach as you would find in Western philosophy.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Thank you. Okay, I should remember your words, so next time I can explain for other people. Thank you. Okay, so I think I already talked about this. Today is a little bit different. I'm going to present my translation. Okay, so that's why I ask everybody to read a different translation so we can compare and we will know, okay, what's the difference. I'm not saying this one is better, this one is not good, but different writing has a different purpose. So the difference here I'm going to do is I'm going to read Dao De Jing, what the Dao De Jing mean to the reader at that time, okay, not today, okay. So that means I try very hard to avoid my own interpretation. I try to back to the original time. And when you see it, then you can have a different idea. You may say, oh, let's talk about God, Jesus God, okay, Jesus Christ. That's talking about similar as Muslim idea of God, or they talk about that's similar of Buddhism's emptiness. Okay, that'll be fine. Okay, so you may learn the life lesson. I think that's the purpose. But when I do the translation, I will try not to teach you the life lesson. I think the life lesson should be when you read it and you figure out that's what I can do in my life. And secondly, I think it's I want to make sure each chapter is a complete argument. So that means a lot of translation or a lot of people, including most of the Chinese reader, they read just by sentence. So we pick up the sentence and say, that's a good sentence. That's good lesson to learn. But I'm not going to do this way. I'm going to make sure the whole chapter is consistent. When you talk about storm rain, okay, you talk about the retire, they got to have a relationship. You cannot just like talk about storm rain and then talk about retirement at the end. You got to have some relationship. I have to present and make sure the logic is consistent. So I think that's the key point I try to do, because each chapter should have their own lesson and their own of argument. Okay, so, and then since Taoism, okay, and the Lao-Tzu especially is very close to the Buddhism teaching and some consistent with Confucius teaching, but I'm going to avoid it because that's precede, okay, the Buddhism time and at the same time of Confucius, okay. So a lot of translation will use the word, okay, or the concept of Buddhism or Confucianism concept to the translation. That's the part I'm going to avoid because that would be your job, okay. When you read this one, you say, that's the same as Buddhism teaching, okay. But I'm not going to put Buddhism's word in Lao-Tzu's mouth, okay. I think that's the important thing I will try to do. For example, emptiness, okay, emptiness, that's a common word, shunyata, in Buddhism teaching. And then actually in Lao-Tzu Dao De Jing, there's no word as emptiness, okay? And most of the words they call wu, okay? That means nothingness, okay? So you can say, they are the same, but I'm going to avoid this kind of misunderstanding because Lao-Tzu is not Buddhism, okay? And if you say Lao-Tzu is teaching the same thing as Buddhism, that's your reflection, okay? But when Lao-Tzu is writing, he has no idea of Buddhism. So that's the way I'm going to do. And another thing I set my own goal is I want to make sure the words are consistent. So when you use certain words in the original Chinese, you are going to translate to the English in the same word, okay? So I try to avoid confusion, but of course it's difficult, but because many times the Chinese use, it's same as English, right? Every word has a different meaning. So it doesn't, not necessarily one-to-one match. So that will create a difficult part. So when I use different words for same Chinese, unless the Chinese has a different meaning, different chapter, otherwise I'm going to use the same word. So the reader, when the reader read it, will know that's the word in Chinese. So that's the way I'm going to do. And any question? We have about 8 chapters to read. So I probably would give like 10 minutes on each one and then 10 to 15 minutes on 10. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, 10 minutes on each one. So some are shorter, some are long, and then we can do. Before that, I do some word count because right now you have the computer, so much easier. You know, I don't have to manual count. I can use Google search, the word search to count. So find something interesting. So a few words I'd like to just quickly go through. Okay, so Dao we already talked about. Okay, we probably not. Well, I don't think there's a new way to explain Dao at this moment. Second word is De. Okay, so I will translate it as virtue. Okay, but it means something like a power or something. This word is important. It shows up 62 times. So that means this book called Dao De Jing, these 2 words are the most common words show up. And what is De? That means the virtue we can understand this way. In this book, when they talk about the or the virtue, basically is something. Since Dao is not explainable, not understandable, but De is something follow Dao, come after Dao. So what you can do is follow some De, some virtue. Okay, so that's something you can do it. So you will see a lot of De. Okay, so virtue. Another name is so-called name. That's on the very first sentence, right? They talk about the Dao can be spoken, it's not real Dao. The name can be named, it's not real name. So basic, the name means the manifestation, right? That's what the Dao, since you cannot understand, but you can understand the surface. You can see the surface or manifestation on the surface. Okay, so they call it name. Okay, manifestation. Okay, so that these three names is coming quite often. Okay, then let's go another word called the unchanging law, the so-called Chang. Okay, constancy. Okay, this one also show up many times. Okay, so another thing important is so-called good. I think it's all the philosophy, moral teaching. They all talk about good. Okay, so these words a little bit conflict. These words, if you were surprised in the Dao De Jing whole book, it show up 54 times. Okay, so Dao is good is, I think it's all the philosopher has a problem to explain what's good. So in Dao De Jing doesn't have the Chinese word so-called hao, the word we use for good today, but they all use this word. Okay, this word means good, means skillful, means proper. Okay, so important here is proper. In Confucius teaching, they have a concept of the most good, so-called the the summon bonum, right? The ultimate good. And in Taoism concept, probably don't try to avoid the extreme. So the good probably means the proper, the properness is good. So you will see the words being used in many ways. Okay. Another word is so-called xin, this word. That's the belief, means confidence, means something belief. This also show up many times. When we go to the chapter, we will get more. And a few common words we will see when you see the translation. One thing is so-called 万物. Okay, so I think in your translation, a lot of time you will see 10,000 things. Okay, so basics I will translate as all things. Okay, that means everything, and I believe it usually means non-human things. Okay, so that's 10,000 things, and they have a thing called 百姓. There's 100 surnames. Okay, basically it means the people in the world, the commoner. Okay, not the aristocrat. Okay, so another word difficult is heaven, so-called 天. That means the sky, and so I translate as a heaven. But sometimes it causes confusion, causes a problem because a lot of people understand as paradise. So I just have to make sure the heaven have some divine power than the regular sky, but not that powerful as paradise. Okay, Chinese do have a heavenly court. Okay, they have the Jade Emperor over there, but that's not the paradise. Okay, so heaven has a divine power. They will punish people. Okay, but it's not a paradise. Okay, just so I call it heaven. So when we call the under the heaven, okay, that means the world. Okay, so sometimes you will see under the heaven, that means the entire world. Okay, but that means usually means the political world. Okay, compared to another word called 天地, that means literally means heaven and earth. That means the nature world. Okay, so they have the two different concepts here. Okay, so another word called 仆. Okay, so I translate as uncarved block. We will go detail in the chapter. Okay, it's also important concept. It show up 10 times. And another thing is the sage. Okay, I think all philosophical writing in ancient Chinese, they always call sage. Okay, so understanding of the sage is first, the Chinese philosophical sage is not Indian holy man. Okay, not this kind of sage. Basics is more political figure. So basics in Confucius, when Confucius teaching, Confucius writing talk about sage it talks about the sage king, the ancient sage king. And the Taoism, surprisingly, I find out it talk about sage 32 times for the 81 chapter. So basics 1/3, more than 1/3 of the chapter is talking about the sage. So if you think about like this, if sage is the political figure, okay, then this book must have a lot of political sense. It's not just like teaching you a life lesson. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do. So Pin, you have the hands up.
Oh, yes. So I just want to add a little bit to the meaning of shan, the one that's good, skillful, proper. I think it's, I looked it up. So the character you see has the character of goat on top and mouth on the bottom. So the original meaning, so goat was the favorite sacrificial animal. So it meant basically people saying blessings to each other. Because goat also represented a good omen. And so I think shan, even today, right, shan, one meaning is benevolence. And also people who treat other people well. So I just want to put that in there. I think that meaning is in Lao-Tzu's writing also when he used shan. It's kind of a benevolence.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yes. Well, same as in Western sense, when we talk about good, it's a difficult concept. It could be, it could be in the moral sense, it could be in the skillful sense, okay, or many sense. But thank you, Pim, for the. Yeah, that's right. That's in the words on this one. But that's good. And the first thing we are going to talk about in chapter 8. Okay, we talk about the form of water. Okay, that's one is. So I would like pay attention on this. In the Lao-Tzu's teaching, it's very similar on each one. Is he want to talk about the general thing, the nature world, something you really understand, everybody understand. Then go to the end and tell you your message. So on this one, chapter 8, I'm going to read. This one is talking about sun. Okay, so called this word, sun. Okay, that means the good. So basically, they talk about the. So here I'm going to explain the sun means properness. Okay, but I just mentioned this one could be good, could be just like Pin said, the blessing word or something. So basically, that's the purpose. Okay, the important word. So in this chapter, I'm going to explain this one. Consider this one as a properness because it's no way to find the exact English word for the sun. So. So the first thing I talk about the highest form of properness is the form of water. Okay, so water will be important thing, everything in Lao-Tzu's teaching. So because the water always like flowing down and then, so we'll see. Okay, and he talk about water nourished all things without striving against them. It always stay in the lowest place where most people do not want to stay. In this sense, the form of water is like Dao. Okay, so here I explain the Dao. Okay, so you can imagine what's going on here. He's telling about the form of water, what's the nature of water. It's flowing, even stay in the worst place, which is lowest place. You always go to the lowest place. And then it benefits everything. Everything needs water. And then, so we think the Lao-Tzu is talking about this one is close to Dao. And then he's going to give you 7 lessons about you can learn from water. So first he says, stay in the proper place, just like he said, stay in the low place. Okay. Think with proper depth. Okay. You want to just like he used the word like abyss, right? The very deep water, and deal with proper manner. Okay, basically talk about soft, tender, not competing, and speak with proper words. I believe he used the word xin. I believe he means it's predictable, just like water. Okay, so in other words, words is trustworthy, right? When I say I'm going to meet you at 1 o'clock, it's predictable. It's 1 o'clock, just like water. Okay, you can predict what's going on. Govern with proper order. Okay, so he's talking about following the course. Okay, because water always flow in the certain route. Okay, and walk according to proper capability. So I believe we're talking about water have a potential and then react with proper timing. Okay, so that's the 7th lesson. Okay, Lao-Tzu is going to teach us from the observation of the water. So you're going to draw the conclusion. Okay, if and only if one doesn't strive against the other, just like water, right? Then one can be free from blame. Okay, that's the lesson. So you can see the whole structure. It talk about the water, talk about what you can learn from the water, and eventually tell you. Okay, you can imagine it's a prince or the government officer. Okay? Don't compete with each other. Okay, so you will be free from any blame. Okay, so that's the lesson he's teaching and on this chapter. Pin, please. You are muted. Pin, you are muted. You are muted.
Hello? Oh, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, if I may, I'd like to offer alternative translation on some things. Is that okay?
Okay, please. Yeah.
So I would use benevolence rather than properness myself. And
okay, go ahead. Yeah.
And striving against, yeah, I think it's right, but I think of it more like water doesn't compete, doesn't fight for something. And the 7 points, I would say, yes, stay in a benevolent place. Heart, it's not think, right? The original text is heart. Put your heart in a deep lake of benevolence. Yuan is like a very deep body of water. So stay your heart in a deep body of benevolence, like a deep water. Deal with, actually, I would interpret it as befriend yourself with benevolence. And also the other things speak of benevolent trustworthiness, govern with benevolent governance, work according to a benevolent energy, and react with, yeah, here I would, I think the sign here is a little different from the other sign. It's the proper timing. I agree with that. So anyway, just an alternative, as you say, 100 people translate the same text will have you see 100 different ways. But
150 ways. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, so I just kind of argument. I will argue against what Pin talking about, because first it talk about, because if we explain the word sun as a benevolence, I see most of the translation put as a benevolence. That's why I kind of disagree, because the benevolence become a life lesson. You teach a moral lesson. So I don't see Lao-Tzu is teaching moral. I think he teaching more political. So in this way, he used the word 正 and 治. talk about 是, okay, you work it. So it's very political word. And then, so that's why, I explain the sun as a properness or skillfulness as rather than the moral sense. Okay, so that's the difference. And if you read your translation, probably most are close to what Peng is talking about. Okay, so instead of Peng offer a different alternative, actually I'm offering a different alternative for everybody to for the reference. So yeah, that's the point here. Okay. So anybody have any comment or any question or want to offer your agreement or your disagreement? You're welcome. We have Audrey and Sarah. Audrey, please.
In reading the Ursula Le Guin, I mean, it sounds like it's finding the way around. That water is talking about finding the way around everything that obstructs the way, finding, like good. It's just things that go around obstruction. It finds its way around that. I found that to be an interesting view of, and she calls it true goodness is like water. So I think she's using good very similarly to what your interpretations are saying. I found it interesting. If I could, can I read it first?
Please, yeah.
Okay. She says, true goodness is like water. Water is good for everything. It doesn't compete. It goes right to the loathsome places and so finds the way. For a house, the good thing is level ground. In thinking, depth is good. The good of giving is magnanimity, of speaking honesty, of government its order. The good of work is skill, and of action is timing. So she's breaking down what proper means in each of those situations. I found that pretty fascinating. So, and in the end, it says no competition, so no blame. So to her, it's finding a way to go around that he's talking about, that Lao-Tzu is talking about, finding a way to go around everything that obstructs the way, the Dao. She uses way in two ways here.
Yeah, thank you. Today our purpose probably not to figure out what's the best way, okay? And then it's welcome to have a different kind of idea, different kind of translation, and different kind of, and our purpose not to reach an agreement, because I just want to show how many.
I'm sorry, it's okay. I got it.
No, I'm not talking about you. I just want to say everybody have free to talk about different things, because you can see they have so many different ways to explain the same text. Sarah and the Peng.
Yeah, so I'm kind of getting the idea that this is like, I guess the section we're in at least is kind of giving the idea of like, let everything be what it is and don't exert, unnecessary control over how it's flowing. And I would like Peng, because this is what made me think of it, I would like Peng to elaborate on the benevolence and add that into the idea, and just try to, if you could, add that into the idea of like, water is flowing, it's letting everything be what it is. But I'd like you to sort of, if you could, embellish on how benevolence they're saying should come into that idea. And what specifically struck me was the deep lake of benevolence. If you could just kind of go into that a little bit, just so I can connect the idea of benevolence into the idea of just also letting everything be what it is, letting everything flow without interference.
All right, thank you. Peng, that's your turn. You can answer.
Yeah, great question.
Before you say that, let me say that I just don't see water have a benevolence. So, anyways, but go ahead. That's fine. Yeah.
Well,
that's why I asked Peng.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's the problem with translations, because any word you pick, you're picking a modern word. to try the best approximate the concept 2,500 years ago. So let's look at what Lao-Tzu may have meant. So one is that water nourishes all things without competing with them. So that's the kind of benevolence he meant. Now we have to pick an English word. I can, otherwise we would just use shan. Without that, that would be free of our laden with our interpretations, our value system. But then eventually you might as well just read all Chinese because all the important concepts are not translated. So it's a difficulty. So we have to go back. So that's what he meant, right? Something that gives, but doesn't really expect things in return. And another important thing is he actually used the word ren in number 3 here. So this is very interesting, that connection between Lao-Tzu and Confucius. And what is Lao-Tzu's interpretation of ren here? It's not clear, but there's something there. And it's worth us, when we have nothing better to do, to think about that. Okay. And chew on it. And the deep, Lao-Tzu talks about valleys and deep water quite a bit. I think if you put it all together, it's a state of your mind and your heart, really, that is very still, that has a lot of capacity, and that is the capacity, that it's a great cavity that can hold a lot of things if they come. So that's where this lake, it's a deep body of water with a lot of capacity, that it has power to do things, but it doesn't necessarily do anything. It goes with what happens in nature. That's my thinking.
Okay, thank you. So you can see that. So that's it's how difficult it is. Okay, so if you can understand what you read, it's not only one. Okay, then that be our purpose. So let's move on. Okay, since we have a 10 and we can always go back. Okay, so this one is easier. I call it the retire before going too far, or too. Sorry for the misspelling. So first, holding a bowl full of water, you will soon spill it. Okay, again, that's the same way of teaching. Talk about the nature thing, very common thing, then tell you a lesson. So holding a bowl full of water, you will soon spill it. Pounding a blade and sharpening it, you cannot keep the knife for a long time. Hoarding treasure in your house, you will invite break-ins. Showing off your achievement, you will be slandered. Okay, that's the common thing you should know. That's our daily life lesson. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is thou shalt retire before going too far. This is the Dao of Heaven. Okay, so we talk about Dao again. That's the Dao of Heaven. So in Lao-Tzu's concept, you never go too far. Okay, you never show off. Okay, so just like a bowl of water, you don't make it full. Okay, you like 70%, 80%, you'll be good enough. Otherwise, you will spill. So that's the way we do it. I do it now. And I believe this one probably not much difference. But look, guys, the pin has a different way. Right?
Sorry, I do. So the first one, to me, the meaning is holding a bowl of water and keeping it full. Like you're holding there, you're trying to maintain this so that it doesn't spill. Is not as good as just to let it go. Because that's what it actually says, right? Hold and keeping full. You might as well quit. To me, it's, and that's what Lao-Tzu means. Don't worry about losing things. Don't try to be there like trying to balance things and try to keep things full. Just let it go. Just spill it. And that's so my main difference here.
So, but I accept your explanation, but they will be not consistent with others.
but it's consistent with the original text. I don't care about others.
Oh, yeah, that's I care about others. Because the original text, that's the difference here. I will say, because the original text, they have many ways to explain. So I will make sure it should be consistent for each one. That's the difference. I hope everybody get the point here is they have a way to be very honest on word by word. And also another way is I want to make sure the message, the whole paragraph is consistent.
Yeah, but you do agree, right? 持 means the whole.
Yeah.
R means and. 言之 means keeping things full. And 不如 means not as good as. 其已 is to quit. So that's what Lao-Tzu says.
Well,
I think it's fairly clear.
to quit could be not that full, you know.
But 不如 is not as good as. That
Oh.
there's no question. I don't think there's any question about that, right?
Okay, so then we have other comment. We have who's first? We have Nathaniel, please.
Thanks. Yeah, I mentioned this last week, but I think there's a difference too between like orthodoxy and orthopraxy. So like, you know, a lot of, especially in Christianity in the West, we're so used to like orthodoxy, like right belief. Maybe this is like more like orthopraxy, where this is like right action, you know? So I don't know. I guess maybe that's a distinction we should keep in mind. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Nathaniel. Audrey, please. Audrey. You are muted.
Sorry. Filling the bowl is to the brim will spill it over. So I think it's actually talking about, I hate to compare you two, but I don't think it's just about giving in and letting it go. Because that's not consistent with the rest of the four lines. I think it's holding water. You will spill it. If you fill the water to the brim, you will spill it. Or if you're holding too tight, your hands are going to shake and it'll spill. So don't do that. I don't think it's telling you to spill it. I'm telling you it's don't hold so tight. And so, and it seems to go with, don't, if you sharpen the blade too much, you're going to have a blunt knife kind of thing. That's what the second one means to me. Hoarding the treasure in your house, you will invite break-ins. So it's like, don't hold on to things. It's similar to letting go, but it's not quite the same meaning as, to me, as letting go that Peng is talking about.
Okay, so I thank you, Audrey. Okay, so we have a lot of
But this is going to be hard if you're talking, if you and Peng are going to go like, which is the best, then everybody's going to come in and say, well, which is the best? So if you have a different point of view here that you want to do with each of these, I'm not quite sure what it is, but you're inviting other translations.
Yeah, we have many different translations. Yeah, that's fine, but that's the purpose here. So then who's the next? Jimmy? Is that Jimmy? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add to Audrey, like, look at animals, like they don't have a water bottle. They just drink their mouth full, right? Like, they just take enough for that sustenance. Like they don't hoard it. Like they're just like animals will just drink from the water and then that's enough, right?
Yeah, they're not holding on to it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to have let me see. Okay, I'm going to stop on this one after Dave, Kevin, and the Madeline, and I'm going to move on. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so
yeah,
Dave,
thanks,
please.
Jason and Ben. To me, I think the harmonizing idea or theme of all this is greed. And the first one, I think the important word is full. if you have the bowl full of water, it's going to get spilled. If you only had a bowl half full of water, it would be wonderful. So I think it's all these things are talking about being too greedy.
Thank you. Okay. Kevin, please.
Yeah, I will follow on David's point. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. On the post, we got idiom in Chinese called 过犹不及. The too far is not it's bad as not enough. It's obviously that this hit perfect for the first pair, holding a bowl of water. You spill, that's then it, it's not better than you stop it or quit it. So what do you guys think? It's 过犹不及. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Madeline, you are the last one for the this
Yeah,
chapter. What you said is the final conclusion.
I just wanted to put in something about translations that's come up before. So if we look at the entire Dao De Jing as a text describing an elephant, in the same way that our story about the five blind men and the elephant goes. So when it's talking about water, let's say that now we're just talking about someone who is feeling something and he's saying, okay, this is the skin. Because remember, there's going to be more than one chapter and they're going to use more than one analogy. But skin is written in a different language. And so translators could render it as outer covering. They might render it as hide. They might render it as pelt. They might render it as a description. A bumpy, wrinkled surface with hairs in it. So I think that when Pin and Jason are discussing different translations, there is not going to be a one-to-one translation for the word elephant skin from Chinese to English, just as there won't be a one-to-one translation for the word benevolence in English. So we're going to have to take it as we're looking, we're hearing translations of a text that's about the five blind men and the elephant. And here, one of the five blind men is describing some different aspects of the elephant. And we're all trying to figure out what that elephant is. And I'd say that as the sun rises and sets over the elephant, one side will be in light, which is bright. It's clear, it's sharp. We'll call it orderly, we'll call it yang or hard. And the other side of the elephant will be in shadow, which would be yin, shade. It might be soft, dark, or feminine. And when the sun is, but remember those wrinkles have bumps and folds, so there's a little bit of everything mixed in on both sides.
Okay, thank you. Pin, can we wait to move on, or you have something quick on this?
Very quick.
Okay,
yeah,
please.
I just say apologies. I do agree. I think I'm focusing too much on the exact wording and translation.
But I just want to defend
and taking away time from discussing the actual meaning and understanding. So apologies, everyone.
I just want to defend for you, then you apologize. So, okay. But anyway, I just want to make sure that Pin's word by word, that's correct. Wow, it's a way of correct. But I talked at the beginning. I want to make sure the message is correct, the whole paragraph, because that's my personal preference. I cannot accept anything not logically right. So if logical not correct, then I'm not going to read this this book because the logical doesn't make sense. But I believe the logical makes sense. Yeah, but I will convince everybody this book is a good book because it logically makes sense. Okay, that's why I'm here. So, but I think this one is important. We may spend a little bit more time on this one. Okay. That's why I'm talking about logic, because I see the consistency in the Lao-Tzu's teaching usually talk about something very obvious, the natural world, then give you a lesson. Okay, so that's the way they, Lao-Tzu is teaching. So chapter 11, 30 spokes join a hollow harp. In its nothingness, the functionality of a wheel, means a vehicle, is created. Okay, you see the words, the wu, okay, I translate as nothingness. Yong is functionality. So every sentence or stanza have these two words. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Only 4 sentences, 4 stanza, and each one have these two words. Okay, second, clay is shaped to make a container. In its nothingness, the functionality of a container is created. Okay, just like a bowl, right? It's empty inside. It's nothingness inside. That's why it has a function. Okay. Door and the windows are cut out from a room. In their nothingness, the functionality of a room is created. Okay, then they draw for the 1, 2, 3 example. Then Lao-Tzu draw a conclusion. Therefore, we think of what is tangible as equipment, yet it is in their emptiness that the functionality is created. So I think that everything here is telling about the logic here is look at the real world, look at the window, look at the ball. Okay, why window is functional? Why the ball is useful? Because there's nothingness in between. So the tangible thing, okay, is the one for the equipment, for the tool, but the actual function is in its nothingness. Okay, so that's the way I look at this one. So I think here is the translation I'm using. Any comment or any idea? Madeline, please.
Yes, thanks, Jason. This is great. We had a long discussion about this one in the Tuesday evening Dao De Jing meetup group. And one of the things about it is that when we look at those three first lines, 30 spokes, clay's shape, doors and windows, those are all things that people are making. So those are all made things that are made by humans. These aren't things that are just found in nature. And so part of this, to me, is about how we may make things in our human world, but it's in their, it's the shape of the thing that isn't made that is useful to us. And so for those here who are really into Western philosophy, there's J.J. Gibson, who was into biosemiotics, among other things. And he talked about something called affordances, which is what opportunity does something in nature offer? What does it afford? In other words, what does it offer to an animal? So for, let's take an oak tree. So for an oak tree, for a bark beetle, the affordance of an oak tree might be to lay its eggs inside the bark. For a squirrel, the affordance of the oak tree might be to use it as a bridge to get to another tree. A bird approaching sees a branch, it sees a landing strip for its claws, or a place to build a nest, or a home. So the things that we find in nature can have many different affordances. In other words, many different opportunities depending on the species type that's approaching them. Here we're talking about things that people have made for our own use, that are implements that have a built-in affordance for the abilities of our own species. However, that affordance, this functionality, lies in its void, in its negative shape, or in what art is called negative shapes or negative space. So I think this is really a brilliant chapter. It's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you, Madeline. Okay, so we have Dave and Audrey. So I'm going to, okay, then Jin. Then I'm going to stop here. Okay, so Dave, Audrey, and Jin. Yeah. Oh, not David, Joe.
Oh, were you talking about me? Okay, all right.
Yeah, what about you? Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. I mean, it's the opposite. I mean, and I said this on our Tuesday night when we were having our discussion, is that the substance, the essence of something is in the fact that is what is not there. So if you were to take lightness and dark, like what is darkness? It's the absence of light. So that you know what it is by the opposite of what is actually not there. So that is where you can get to the essence of something. Or if you were talking about the importance of something like silence and the importance of something like sound, you know the importance of silence because you understand sound. It's the emptiness, the nothingness, that void that you have that allows you to appreciate what the function and the essence of the object actually is. So I think that that's the most important part about this, is that you understand the space because you understand the essence of the object itself.
Yeah, thank you. Who's next? Audrey and Jin.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of words to explain all this, but to me, it's much more about seeing an empty space and understanding all the things that can happen within it without trying to, confine it to any one thing or any one use, that there's so many possibilities. And there's something about an idea of nature or some kind of container in your civil society that you've agreed to live within, that you create this container and allow the magic to happen, that you embrace new ideas and new functionalities. I mean, it seems like he's using simple things to talk about utility so that we can understand this concept of all the possibilities within this, what people are calling void or emptiness. But it's sort of embracing rather than narrowing it to the right function, to me.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey. Yeah, I think that's a personal. I used to use the emptiness, but then I realized it probably not proper to use emptiness. Should be that I should change this one to nothingness, because I think that's a little bit different. Because the nothingness is in the existentialism concept create the freedom. Okay, so if you read.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I think that's very deep and a very important message here. So emptiness probably a little bit too Buddhism like idea. So it is a little bit different. So we have a Jin, please.
Yes, for me, this is not as deep, but the simplicity of seeing the emptiness, the need, and then the functionality being finding the solution to the need. So, even with the examples in nature, a squirrel needs a place to keep its nuts so that other animals can't get to it. So then the functionality of the tree exists. And they learn to use that as source. And that creativity through time with, evolution in nature. It's that nothingness and then creating as a function of the need and to fulfill that need and satisfy it.
All right, thank you. I'm supposed to move on, but Max, you are the first time speak, so I make a special case for you.
Thanks, Jason. Jason, question for you. When I read this,
1 minute. If anybody have a question, you can jump on. Okay, so that's the rule. Okay, so if you have something don't understand, please ask. Okay.
Question for you. When I read this, where I went with this is meditation and sort of creating space in my consciousness. Do you think that there is any connection between that, or do you think it's really has nothing to do with consciousness and meditation, and it really is about other emptiness? It's just a question from that perspective.
I got you. Okay, so for me, Jason, myself, I say no. This is political. This lesson. Okay, but for you, everybody, you are free to think about what you want to learn from this one. That's my point. Okay, so if you ask me, then I don't. Okay, but that's just me. James, you have something quick? We are going to move to the next
I
one.
just want to make the point that this idea of nothingness, I think he's using it here just as examples, but it's I think it's eminent in nature itself. That you know, in life there is life and there is death. In life, you know, there is being and there is nothingness, and I think that's the ultimate. You know, he's touching on the ultimate question here. You know, being and nothingness. You know, where does something come from? Does it come from nothing or something? And some people argue that you can't have something without something, right? You can't. So something has to come out of something. But he's making a point that something comes out of nothing. And there are two, you know, opposite poles of existence.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just kind of touch on Max's question is, I don't, just a little bit explain on Max's question, why I'm answer is not a meditation, because I don't see Lao-Tzu is teaching meditation. That's Buddhism concept. Okay, so that's the, if you ask me why I'm not thinking about meditation, that's my answer. So
Can I add something to that though, Jason?
Okay, please.
I agree with the answer about this chapter, but you know, one famous ancient annotation of Lao-Tzu by He Sangong. And He Sangong's interpretation is that Lao-Tzu in some other chapters did talk about meditation and breathing.
Which chapter?
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't recall, but that is, He Sangong is well known for that kind of interpretation. So I just want to throw that in. Yeah.
Thank you, Peng. Yeah, I just want to make sure that when I do this one, I start to read other famous Chinese translator or interpreter. Okay, many famous one like He Sangong or Su Ce or Wang Bi. That's all very famous. And I find out I disagree with these people. So so I just want everybody knows, you know, this one, the translation I'm making is probably not the majority, but I want to make sure you read the your own translator and then you understand the logic I'm presenting here. So I hope you got a different view on the text. And then when you read other chapter, you will have your own understanding, will probably provide different view for you.
Yeah, for those who like Shakespeare, you know, remember Hamlet's question, to be or not to be? That is the question, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, okay, so we are going to do on the 12th. Okay, I think somebody is Sarah or Madeline asked about this one, 5 senses. Okay, so this one has a number 5, right? The 5 varieties of color blind one's eye. The 5 varieties of sound deafen one's ears. The 5 varieties of flavors numb one's taste. The game of riding and hunting frenzy one's mind. The valuable goods hinder one's behavior. Therefore, the sage provide for people's belly, which means the something necessary, instead of their eyes, which is something obvious you can see. For this reason, they shun pursuing the obvious and prefer getting the necessary. Okay, so a few things I'd like to explain before I open for question or comment. Many translations call this one like many colors. Okay, blind your eye, many sounds, blind deafen your ears. So 5. The words here is 5. Okay. 5 in Chinese doesn't mean a lot, okay? Doesn't mean too much. In other way means just proper, because Chinese do have talk about 5 color, 5 sound. That means the proper, the all we have, okay? So I don't see, the first thing, I don't see that means too much, too many, okay? It's just in other way, just means the variety. And then when you read this one in Chinese, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, you will find out it's right, okay, with mang, and this long, okay, means deaf, okay, but in Mandarin doesn't rhyme with other, but if you do it in the local dialect, the dialect speak lang, okay, that's rhyme together. So Mang, Lang, Shuang, Kuang, Fang. The basic, the all right. So I believe this one could be the folk song. Okay, the common people are talking about this one. They probably, the commoner, are making fun of the aristocrat, okay, the noble people. Okay, so they talk about their building or their clothes have many colors. Okay, just blind your eye. They listen to music, just make you deaf. They eat so many good food that just numb your taste. They are doing hunting, all kind of game. That's make my crazy. And they collect all kind of stuff. They just damage your behavior. The probably is just like a folk song of people talking about this. And Lao-Tzu used this one as a lesson to teach the prince, the government officer. Okay, let's say, okay, that's they are talking about. See, and then we should focus on what's the necessary, not the something you obvious. Okay, so that's the way we should behave, or you guys should behave. I think that's the way of the teaching. Okay, on this one. Okay, but of course, most of translator, okay, consider this one as a personal lesson. Okay, like ask you to live a humble life, don't enjoy too much, and then so that take a personal. But again, I try to make. I think Lao-Tzu in Dao De Jing is teaching, is political teaching. Okay, a lot of political teaching. So I believe that's the way it works. So yeah, Pin, you have a different idea, I think.
No, not this time. So yeah, thank you for pointing out the rhyming. The most of Lao-Tzu is rhymed. And I just want to let everyone know that Jason has an advantage that he speaks a dialect that best preserves ancient Chinese sound. So when we read this Lao-Tzu in Mandarin, we don't pick up rhyming. Whereas, we miss a lot of the rhyming. Whereas Jason, I'm sure he can, read it in the Taiwanese or Minnan dialect. The rhyming shows up much better. So I just want to point out that nuance.
Yeah, thank you, Pin. Yeah, and especially I read this one, the first five, I find out it's kind of not only rhyming, also the tone probably makes sense. I'm not expert on that, but just feel like this five, it must be the song to me. It must be the song, people singing or something. Yeah, that's why I have this idea. I'm not sure any other translator pick up this one or not, but that's what I'm thinking.
The tones, yeah, many of the tones have been lost in Mandarin. So, yeah. But when you read it in the Minnan or Taiwanese dialect, those tones are preserved. And so in that sense, the entire book is actually a very long poem.
I'm not sure it is, but Dave, please.
Yeah, it seems to me the comparison on this is necessity versus luxury. So putting the word obvious, I don't really agree with. I think like the last line, they shun pursuing luxury and prefer getting necessary. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, okay. Yeah, I know most of talk about luxury, but I have to honor the word they use is mu, this word. Okay, so this word, sage, okay, let's talk about sage. That's no doubt about it. This one means fu, means your belly, okay, literally means belly. This one means your eye, okay, that's eye. There's no doubt about this. So we talk about belly and eye. So belly we can understand as necessary. Everybody have to eat. But eye, if you try to make an extension as luxury, I think it's too far. So only thing I can explain is the eye probably means what you can see. Okay, that means appearance. So I hope you agree with me on this. So I wish he used different words like luxury. So that would be easier for me. But unfortunately, he used the word mu, which means eye. So I think the comparison is right? Your body have you have something important is eye, enjoy your eye, which is appearance, and the belly is something inside. Okay, so that's the way to do it.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, the original text, I just want to point out, is very vague. It just, the last sentence just says, therefore take, eliminate that and take this. So I think everyone is free to interpret what that is and what this is.
yeah, that's why. So that's why it's very vague. Just take out this, then keep this. So I have to assume you take out what appearance and keep the necessary. That will consistent with the entire teaching. That's I assume. Yeah. Thank you for pointing out. Yeah. We have Kevin, Adina, and Audrey. Kevin, please. Kevin, I think you are muted.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, one word. I really like you speak your local. You say now, let's see. And by the way, I'm one word, 爽. This one, the third one. That's a very positive, so excited word in modern days.
Yeah, that's right. But
that's
not in the ancient words, Yeah.
I mean, that's, change the word itself, change the meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can share some tone, please.
Basically, we say the bak bang. So this one is called bak bang, dang, he dang, right? And Kao Song and Hua Gong and Hing Kong. That's the way we read. So if you read in Chinese, these words, okay, is not right. But if you read in my local He Lang, okay, it's same as Bak Lang, Bak Bang, right? So that's right.
Yeah, I got a question again. Follow the David thing. Why we discard one thing, those get another side? Why we need to pick? Could we, let's see, after fill out value, the necessity, we also can satisfy our eyes, our purpose from Western views and destiny. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so there's a different way to explain it, but again, I just try to make sure the whole chapter makes sense, logically makes sense, and be as close as the original word. That's I try to do. Yeah. We have Adina and Audrey. Adina, please.
Thank you. So I'll be concise. It's for this reason they shun pursuing the obvious and prefer getting the necessary. And in this particular respect, to me, it's they consciously ignore what's obvious in front of us. So it's just that it's just interpreting what we're interpreting as say material things in front of us. It's not necessarily how it is. So for instance, if we'll be describing a situation, it would be a different description of each and every of us. And that's that. It's not, my description is not necessarily the truth. Even I'm right here and even I'm saying these words. That's what it is. So just go beyond obvious and question it or do the inquiry. Thank you.
I didn't get it. You said your translation talk about the truth.
So the very last thing, Jason, you see the very last sentence. For this reason,
oh, you mean
they
this?
shun pursuing the obvious. And below that, for this reason, they shun pursuing the obvious.
Yeah.
And prefer getting the necessary.
Yeah.
So what?
Okay, this one is a little bit difficult, just like a pinpoint out. The text here, it doesn't say obvious, doesn't say, you know, this sentence talk about the belly and the eye. Okay, but we have a way to talk about this. But here is very vague. It's just about like pursuing this and getting that. Okay, they just use that, this and that. I think in English it could be the formal and the later. Okay, so I think that's it. And we don't know. I just have to assume, you know, pursuing the formal, okay, which is necessary, and get rid of the later, which is obvious one. I just have to assume this way. So.
Can I make a quick comment? Yes. Yeah, I have a slightly different interpretation. The I think, refers to the first several things. You look at it, it's all kind of frivolous for pleasure, and some of it's about greed. So I think that's what the I refers to. I is the things are just pleasing to the eye. I think it's fairly common in Chinese that things like 色, you know, and I are these superficial things. And so the sage avoids the, you know, eliminate the superficial, but, you know, more concerned about the necessary. That's, yeah.
That the same as what I write here, right? I just, instead of do superficial, I put obvious.
Yeah, I think that's what you mean. Right. I think that's, but obvious, I think in English, obvious means something that's like obvious, like everyone already understand, you know, this is obvious, like trivial, transparent. I think it's a little nuanced, that's all. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So it's an English problem, not Chinese problem.
Right.
Yeah, so I
think our understanding is on the same page, but yeah,
okay,
just.
Got you. So I think that probably my fault. So I should put the, instead of obvious, I should put it as superficial, right?
Something like that, yeah. But like we discussed, any word we pick will have problems. But yeah.
But I think superficial. Yeah, you are right. I think superficial probably means closer to what I meant, and closer to the original text, which means I. Okay. So we have Audrey and Madeline. Then I'm going to move on. Okay, Audrey, please.
Well, how about, I mean, because I was having issues with the word obvious, and I was thinking of superficial, actually, but I didn't know that that's really what it meant. You know, that may be what, you know, seeing things, you see things and you think that, you know, that's what's in front of you. You never like scrutinize it. You know, there's no discriminating awareness. So it could be like, don't just see what's on the surface, see what's, you know, be a little discriminating in terms of, you know, don't take in exactly everything without looking deep into it. And just having discriminating awareness. So maybe it's the inner eye or something that a lot of people talk about, you know, like look beneath it to see if it's, you know, something that's necessary for you rather than, you know, we used to have a sign up at my uncle's, and we used to have a sign up because we would always have like, you know, these big Italian dinners and there'd be all this food, and he'd have this sign over the food saying, don't let your eyes fool you. You know what you can eat here. You know, it's sort of like that. And it's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the superficial is the right word. Okay, please make a note. Madeline, please.
Yes, I have a few comments on this. When we look at those first three sentences, and these are all drawn from a Tuesday evening discussion. So I'm summarizing the results of a longer conversation. Basically, those first three sentences sum up the concept that in English we would say, all things in moderation. In other words, the first sentence isn't saying, these four colors are good, but this other one is bad. Okay, it's saying you get all of them going at once, yeah, it's going to be blinding. The same thing with sound and the same thing with flavor. The games of riding and hunting frenzy one's mind. Frenzy was, I believe it had a sort of sense of, I forget it was animal frenzy or battle frenzy, but basically enacting warfare type activities can stir that up in people. When you are holding tight to your valuable goods, like your jade, your storehouse of precious gold and jade, you're either going to be dragging them around behind you, or you're going to be sitting on top of them to protect them, but you're not going to be behaving freely. You're always going to be hindered by those things, by your attachment to those things. In the Tuesday evening group, and I can't remember who made this point, I think it was Aman. It might have been David E., who I see is present today, or it could have been Pin. That bellies was actually refers to the Dantian, which I am mispronouncing. It is the area somewhat below the navel, a couple of inches below the navel and slightly inward, that is considered to be the center of one's body. So it's very specifically using the word belly that refers to that, rather than filling your stomach with food. And so when you are providing for that, that's like the pivot point for your chi. That's the point where it revolves in your body and mixes yin and yang and does all sorts of good things. That's the most necessary thing for people, for the populace, to find their own balance. When the ruler sage or the sage king is facilitating that, rather than encouraging those first 5 things, which is basically materialism, then you have a populace that is focused on kind of living in the Tao more, and not as acquisitive, grasping, combative, superficial, name calling, all of those things that we think of as being negative when overdone.
Okay, thank you for a different explanation, and we have to move on. And then Kevin and Ping, you have something quick on this one. Otherwise, I will move on.
Yes, it's quick.
Okay, please.
We may heard your eyes are bigger than your stomach. It's a perfect figure, right? That's English, perfect our text. The second one, it's I would say whole context, focus your own life internally. Fill up your body to be happy. Don't not interest in those temptation outside. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Pin, you have something? No? Yeah, okay. So I just want to remind everybody what I'm doing here. I try not to tell people what's the lesson I'm learning. I try to tell what he tried to say. Okay, but which is a lesson, you can argue, but you know, that's why I try hard on this one. So let me go this one on chapter 15. Okay, that's again the same logic, not going to be full. Okay, and again, I believe you have a totally different translation on this chapter, I believe. So the genuine, okay, the original say the old time. Okay, so in Chinese, when they say the old time, whenever you see the translation say the old time, the ancient time, that means the good time. Okay, so I think for all the philosophers they talk about, so I just change it to in the old time, or the genuine good Tao practitioner is ungraspable, unpredictable, mystical, and omniscient. His Tao is indiscernible. Okay, basically talk about it's deep. Okay. I just have to make sure that every single word is translated. So, but we can know the indiscernible by the following 7 observations. Okay, so here I'm like to make a point is he's talking about Tao. He tried to explain Tao, but then since Tao is so mystical, so unpredictable, so ungraspable, basically he's talking about so difficult. So he's going to try his best to describe, okay? There's 7 lessons, okay? You can from easy to difficult, okay? you can follow to get the Dao. Okay. So the first lesson, prudent as if wading through a stream in winter. Vigilance as if fearing surrounding neighbors. Number 3, dignified as if paying a formal visit. I believe a lot of translators said being as a guest. So I don't see guest in the Western sense, in the Chinese, Asian Chinese sense, different. I think if you are my guest, you probably feel very relaxed. And but in Chinese at that time, being a guest is a serious thing. But okay, I explained that a bit. Okay, so number 4, unwound like melting ice. Simply, number 5, simply nature like an uncarved block. Vast like a valley. Indistinguishable like muddy water. So they talk about 7 different things, and which I put a picture on that. Okay, so basics I talk about the same from easy to difficult. You should behave like this. Your life, the way of you doing business should be like this. You should be like wading through the winter, in the winter, through the water. The fearing surrounding neighbor. I just put this picture like Israel, right? You're surrounded by the neighbor, which is neighbor, but you should be careful. And you pay in a formal visit. Just that's something like being a guest. Okay, you can think about you visiting your boss, okay, to your home. This kind of behavior, like a melting ice, that get a little bit vague, but it's not solid, not soft, between liquid and solid. That's I think. And like uncarved block, that's like you can imagine, like wood, right? It's not polished, like original, heavy, solid, and like a valley, big and vast. And the muddy water, the water is not so clear, which is, we talk about, if you think about in Zhuangzi, talk about equality of things, everything not so clear between me and others. I think that's the message he want to talk about. So the last 2 sentences will be, he say, who can rest in the muddy world and slowly cleanse? Who can move peacefully through the world and still grow? And those who hold this Dao never desire fullness, because they never desire fullness. They can persevere without being reformed. Okay. So this last 2 is challenging, but I think to make sure that everything consists. Okay, so I think the message here is the last sentence. You want to renew yourself, but you don't want to have outside force to force you to reform. Okay, so that's the attitude here. The 7 attitude you have to keep. Just like be careful, be alert, but it's not like very uptight. Kind of like relaxed, but and not very clear. And clear doesn't means, muddy doesn't means like mess up. That means like not so clear between me and others. And so that's the way I try to explain on this chapter. So any comment? Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Jim disagree. Jim agree. So Jim please.
Yeah, I agree with excellent translation, but only the last part on the right side, the 2 sentences, I have a slightly mental picture when I read it. I think of it more like he's talking about your heart, and he's talking about this mental picture comes in my mind is you have a bowl of muddy water, and you let it rest. It'll slowly just the mud will settle, and it will on its own become clear. So I see it more of an internal thing. Not living in the muddy world is actually your own heart. At times when you're muddy, can you just let it rest and let it settle
okay, so you think
and become clear? And then with the next one is you also don't always want to be in that settled state. You know, it's kind of like I Ching, yin and yang. You know, it's there's not one that's better than the other. You want both. So when you are in a still state already, can you stir it? And 安以久动之, right? It says when you're settled for a long time, can you move it and let it become growth? So that's my own spin on it. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and then I think I agree on your. I think yours is very good. If you take this one as a personal lesson, okay. But again, in the whole thing, I believe Lao-Tzu is teaching the political. So that's why I do not think much about the personal lesson. I think this one more on the political, it's teaching the political people on this way. But after you read this one, that's your choice to think about that's a personal lesson. That's the way I read it. You don't have to agree, but basics, that's the way I translate. So no other thing, I'm going to move on. So probably you'll use this one as the last one. Okay, so I only have a few left, but that's fine. You know, we will continue. Make sure everybody cover. I'm pretty happy today. We finished 90% of the slide. So number 16. Okay, we talk about the unchanging law, so-called the Chang. Okay, so a little bit long. So attend to the utmost pacifism and hold to the truly quiet. So again, here is telling you, okay, the nature, ask you to watch, observe the nature world, okay? Then you're going to tell you the political lesson. I think that's the consistent of the Lao-Tzu's teaching, okay? That's the way I look at it. So second, all things have lives, but I see them returning. Because they flourish, they then return to their roots. Returning to the roots is called quiet. It is fulfilling their destination. It is the unchanging law. This one is talking about unchanging law, talking about the nature world, and like you see all the animal, they grow, they die, you know, all go back to the root. Everything in cycle. Okay, so that's the rule. That's your destination. That's the unchanging law. So he's going to tell this one. Those who understand this unchanging law are enlightened. Enlightened. Those who don't understand this unchanging law are recklessly causing disasters. Okay, so that's the lesson he's telling you from this. So he's going to apply this one to the political, okay, world. Okay, so give the 6 lessons about knowing the basics, just step by step. Knowing this unchanging law, one can deal with the appearance. Okay, so talk about very personal level. Okay, so knowing the appearance, again, he talked about from unchanging law to the appearance. Basically, it's a personal affair. Knowing the appearance, one can deal with public affair. Okay, so from personal to public. Knowing the public affairs, one can deal with the political affair. To go further, okay. Knowing the political affair, one can deal with the heaven's affair. Okay, so a little bit bigger. So heaven, you can deal with the divine, righteous, you know, a little bit longer. So Chinese heaven usually has another sense, is timing. So that means, you know, you can deal with the different change situation. So knowing the heaven's affair, one can know how to deal with Dao. Okay, again, we talk about Dao. Okay, so knowing how to deal with Dao, one can govern for eternity. Okay, so basically talk about you start from, see, the logic here is start from looking at the everything in this nature world. They have the unchanging law. You should follow this unchanging law step by step. Deal with yourself, the public affair, the political affair, the heaven's affair to Dao, and you can last forever. Thus, your governing never fail, even without your involvement. Okay, so that's the a little bit trick. He talk about you can deal with everything and then long lasting, even you don't have to deal with daily nitty-gritty, things. So kind of like so-called wu wei, no action. That's the way I'm going to translate on this one. So it's 3 o'clock now, so I think I will end on this one, and then let's discuss then. Pin, please.
Okay, I have some different personal understandings. So I think one thing is emphasis. The unchanging law, actually, I would say everlasting law. Because Chang means something more like ever present, something that's always there, but it doesn't really say something whether it changes or not, right? So I would say everlasting law. And another thing is in number 1 and number 2 on the right side, I don't understand that as appearance. I understand it as being inclusive. Rong is to one meaning, right? Is to take in. So I see it as then one becomes inclusive, and when you're inclusive, then you can deal with the public, and that makes more sense to me too. So those are my 2 main differences.
Yeah, I think most of interpreter, including most of Chinese interpreter, consider this one as inclusive, wrong, right? But I think it doesn't match with the whole logic, and the wrong have another meaning, means appearance. So that means that's the way I'm thinking, because if I kind of read this one as a political lesson. So, and it's very logically makes sense, from the natural world, personal glory, in the way. So I think that's the logic behind it. Of course, we don't know what's the story behind this writing, but I just want to make sure each chapter has the argument is logically sound. Okay. We have Rubena and Madeline, please.
Madeline raised her hand first.
Okay, please. Madeline?
Oh, okay, thank you. I love the phrase, excuse me, it is fulfilling their destination. And I was wondering if you could just expand upon that a little bit, because it seems to say that our destination is our Dao, or is our journey. Is the return. So if you could, or you or anyone who could read the original Chinese could talk about that a bit, please. Excuse me, frog in my throat.
Well, that character also means life. It could mean like a command, like a mandate, or it can mean life. So I'll leave it to yourself to interpret.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just like if I read Chinese, this one's called Fullness, right? Repeat life. Okay, so how are you going to explain this one? If I call destination, it probably too Christian meaning, okay, like a good destination. And if I call it the samsara, okay, the too Buddhism, okay. So basics, that's the dilemma here. I hope you can understand the situation. And again, to what Pin talked about Chang, that's also bothered me for a long time, because probably the best way is to call it Chang, because that also means you said everlasting rule. Yes, that's before I'm thinking about use the capital principle. Okay, that's something never change, but it's another difficult part. So I just have to leave like questionable. Who's next, Rubana?
My question is, it seems to me that these sages, I don't know if you consider them sages, were talking about being quiet, not causing harm to the world around them. And my question is, what was the political environment like at that time? Was there war, or were the kings and emperors listening to the sages and working towards peace and harmony?
Yeah, the time during that time is not good because the feudal system is corrupting. So the same as the Confucius teaching, right? So basically they start have a war, okay? And before they always dream before was the good time, and right now have a war. So both Confucius and the Lao-Tzu is thinking about the old time is good, but Confucius is thinking about the feudal system is good, but Lao-Tzu probably think about even before, okay, quiet, okay, don't do anything, okay. So that's the environment, political environment here. So that's my interpretation. Yeah. Can you have a different idea?
Yeah, Matt, no, not different. I'd like to elaborate. I think actually it's very interesting of my personal interest. So there's a famous 20th century scholar, Hu Si. He has a theory that Lao-Tzu and Confucius were both from the scholar class of the same tradition. And they are both descendants of the previous Yin dynasty. And so at the time that they lived, they were of a class of subjugated people. And Lao-Tzu, Confucius was likely Lao-Tzu's student. And they were both sort of funeral directors. And that's why they were so much knowledgeable into the rites and ancient traditions and everything. And both of them, they started from a philosophy of people of weak positions. And you see, the previous chapter that we just covered, I also see kind of a corroboration of this theory. He is talking about the scholars of the very ancient times. And you read the description of how Lao-Tzu envisioned these very ancient scholars. There's some commonality with Confucius, some of Confucius's philosophies as well. So anyway, it's just a theory. It has some evidence, and then, but it's a theory. I just want to throw it in there since it's kind of related to your question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think if you have been here long enough, you will know, it's no fixed answer here. And then, but just, I hope you are interested in this. Okay, so Alina and Kevin.
All right, I'm just going to move the phone, just a moment. So it's actually a great chapter, knowing the unchanging law. Especially there is a way it's being described, how it's all happens step by step and layer by layer. So just for instance, the very beginning is brilliant. That's when we attain the state of entire stillness, regardless of what else is going on. Then the unchanging law becomes more obvious. It starts to open up, and once we go beyond appearances, then we gain understanding of higher layers. So you could move for higher up and create more, because if you already are not fighting yourself, you are not fighting the position you are in. It just gives you all these powers to move beyond the current state. You see the way. And then at the very highest level, you achieve the total mastery and your destination is fulfilled. And it's very interesting, like that there is it's being distinguished between you being present as a physical being and the entire and whatever the universe or never-ending existence. So it's a beautiful chapter and great interpretation. So thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, please.
I could share one another idiom for Chinese called 叶落归根, 落叶归根. And I literally say leaves follows to the root, means from the tree, right? So in our tradition, in one's old age, one wants to return to their own home. So you, from that aspect, you can help understand this chapter. Then, for example, in Chinese, 复命日常. Basically, that is return to your roots. Then when you from your doesn't matter, it's how you grow from age perspective, your career, then eventually you need to come down, slow down, return to where you come from. Yeah, I'm going to pause now.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. So any other comment? Very good. So we are on time, and then so how do you think about the translation? So I believe I'm going to stop now.